Hello, beautiful human beings, and welcome back to the Ryan Magic Show. Today's episode is about embodying sacredness in your lifestyle. And if you felt the pull to click this episode and check it out, it sounds to me like you're in a beautiful place in your life where you're about to amplify your fulfillment and magic to a whole new level. And so in this episode, I'm going to be covering what is sacredness? What does that mean? And then essentially discussing the different elements of it and inviting in a whole heap of different examples of what it looks like to embody sacredness in your lifestyle, giving you ideas for how you can make your life more sacred and why you'd want to make it more sacred, as well as sharing some stories around how I've done that myself. So if you haven't yet left a review on the podcast, it means so much to me if you pause and just jump on and leave a review. Seriously, that makes such a difference. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, right now, I'm at a point in my life where I value living sacredly. And for a long time in my life, anyone else that was living sacredly, to me, was weird. And I used to almost cringe at the idea of holding extra sacredness for different aspects of life. People, to me, felt arrogant and weird, and I just didn't like it. It was very triggering. And for most of my life, that's what I thought of people, that even the word sacred, I just didn't like it. And the reason why is because if we look at the word weird means something that we don't understand and we don't feel safe around. So if I see someone and they're wearing all this gothic clothing as they're walking down the street, and then I say to a friend, look how weird that person is. Essentially, I'm saying I feel threatened by that person and unsafe on that person, around that person, and I don't understand that person. Now, in the past, when I would go along to different personal development events, there would always be a leader of different levels of spiritual embodiment. And if I was learning from someone that was quite mainstream earlier on in my journey, I would be feeling quite safe around that. And I did understand that. So I felt safe. I understood it. Wasn't weird. But then if I learnt from someone and they did a prayer, I thought, oh, that's like that religious stuff. I don't feel safe around that. I don't understand it either. So I would say to a friend, I went to a seminar today and it was pretty solid. There were some weird parts, but in the most part, it was pretty good. But it was a bit weird. In other words, I felt safe most of the time. And then there were some parts that I didn't understand that were a bit weird. Then when I got into spirituality and meditation, I would go to a meditation class or a retreat. And then I would say to friends afterwards, it was really powerful. I learned this amazing spiritual techniques. But then we did a ceremony with some singing and making these noises, and it was a bit weird. In other words, I don't understand what that is, why it is, and I feel unsafe around it. Because one thing to understand is, as human beings, our brains are programmed to trigger a fear response when we are embracing the unknown, doing something that's new. So it doesn't really matter what it is. If we don't understand it and it's new, it's going to cause a fear response, which is making us feel unsafe. And then we will label things as weird. In other words, we just don't understand it and it makes us feel unsafe. And I've done that. I do so many things right now in my life that a previous version of me thought were weird. And I've had heaps of friends that just have new different practices and ideas that I didn't understand, felt unsafe around, and would label them weird. And so, just to be very clear, sacredness often in society has a weird label. People are labeling spirituality as weird. In other words, they don't understand it and it's threatening to them, because anything that's new is threatening to anybody, really. And so that's the pre-frame and the context through which most of us are exposed to spirituality. I used to go into a spirituality store and it was like cauldrons and dragons and skulls, and I was like, oh, these crystals look nice, but the darkness and the skulls, and it's yuck and weird, and I don't get that, because I didn't understand the darkness, my dark masculine. I didn't have a very safe association with death and shadow, darkness. And now I look at that stuff and I think it's cool, because I am much more familiar with darkness in myself. So I feel more understanding of it, more safe around it. So it's not something I class as weird. Important pre-frame, because I want to take the sting off the idea of sacredness and incorporating all different forms of spirituality into our lifestyle. What's the function? What's the benefit? What's the purpose? And I got a really enlightening revelation around this topic. In the last year, I did a course all about developing a mesa, which is the Mayan word for altar, where there is crystals that get programmed to have different associations and meanings. And there's a way to set up an altar that can be sat in front of to have a time of sacredness and intention setting. And I was very pulled to do this. A few years ago, I would have said it was weird because didn't understand it, didn't feel safe around it. But I felt really pulled to do it because I already had a bunch of spiritual items and I wanted to know how I could interact with it and get the most out of that experience. And one thing that the beautiful teachers said in there was, in the Mayan tradition, they've got this idea of Sami, which means light energy, and Hucha, which means darkness. And essentially, I like to put that in a slightly different language, head and heart, and understanding what they said, which was, when you sit in front of your altar, you are burning Hucha, burning darkness, and you are getting a direct transmission of light energy, of Sami energy. And I thought, wow, that's just clicked a lot of things for me. Because an altar is a form of sacredness. It's a form of spiritual practice. There are so many different types across loads of different traditions and wisdom, sets of wisdom and different religions. So I realized that how I feel when I sit in front of my altar is I essentially just feel connected to my heart. And so I'm going to just take a moment to define sacredness and pull on that revelation to be the bedrock for what we cover in this podcast episode. So sacredness to me means intentional and special or reverent. So this could be a drink bottle. So I'm holding up a drink bottle for those that are just on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, iTunes, whatever. I do every episode in video format and then I put it on my YouTube channel. So if you just watch the Apple or Spotify ones and you haven't watched the episodes with the visual, recommend checking it out, because sometimes I hold up props like this drink bottle and I just find it more engaging to participate in visual. Anyway, here I am holding a drink bottle. It's a drink bottle, yes. How would that drink bottle become sacred? Well, it would need to be special to me, and that would need, if I drunk out of this drink bottle with a lot of intention and reverence, then it would go from a function to a sacred function. So let's say, for example, this was gifted to me from my great-grandfather, and he was an example of a hard worker. Well, this could be special to me, and I could have the intention of using it to remind me that I have that masculine discipline within me. It's not. I just bought it recently. I haven't associated much intention, specialness, and reverence to it. But if it did, it all of a sudden could go from a regular drink bottle to a sacred item. Why? Because I've got more reverence. I see it as more special, and I have more intention. If I drink my water, and every time I drink the water, I'm seeing that act as a symbol of self-nourishment, of me receiving life, then instead of it just, I just took a sip of water. Wow, just drank water. I would drink water every day, no biggie. But if I'm seeing it with intention and reverence of it being a source of nourishment, and I give my attention, my intention to it, and it's actually special to me to drink water, all of a sudden, that act goes from being just drinking water to a sacred practice. And that's profound. That's profound. The reason it's profound is because the whole purpose of life, from my perspective, the whole meaning of life, or the intention of life, is to experience greater and greater levels of fulfillment. And fulfillment is essentially instantly experienced when we're connected to our heart. We feel present. We feel centered. We feel connected. We feel whole, like whole, perfect, and complete. We feel curious. We feel playful. We feel love, gratitude. These are all qualities of being connected to our heart, being in fulfillment. And this is what I realized from that course that I did, from the idea of you sit in front of an altar and you have direct connection to Sami energy, to light energy. And I realized anytime we do something that is sacred, including, but not limited to, sitting in front of an altar, we are having direct connection to our heart. It awakens us into the present moment. It awakens our centeredness, our sense of wholeness, our sense of beauty and gratitude. Yeah. And that's very, very profound. That's very, very powerful as an opportunity of how to experience life. So to me, sacredness is essentially whenever I choose to make something sacred, I'm choosing to live with fulfillment. And you know this experience. You can try it on for yourself. If you make something special or meaningful to you, if you hold something with reverence, or you do something with intention, those three things, you add reverence, you add meaning, and you add intention to something, the experience goes from just being something that's done as another thing to being an opportunity for presence and fulfillment. And that has been my direct experience for years. And the reason that I like and get so much from certain spiritual practices without realizing that it's because the moment I do it, I'm activating and awakening a connection with my wholeness, with pure love, with the divine, with my heart, just by choosing to make something sacred. And we could label it as gratitude and look at it in all these microcosms. When you're grateful, well, gratitude is good, so I'm going to try to bring gratitude into my life. Sure, that is an example of making something sacred, because it's attributing reverence. Reverence is also a word for gratitude. It's something that you revere, that you feel a sense of gratitude, and something that is given respect. And so if we feel gratitude and respect towards things, we're going to have more of a relationship with them, give it more of our attention, more of our presence. So to really simplify and summarize what I've said so far, anything that we hold reverence for, anything that we have that is special or meaningful to us, and anything that we put intention into. So I'm going to special, sacred, special, special, sacred, right? It just creates an instant access to our heart. And so that's not always comfortable for me. What I just said then, just like if someone says to you, meditation is valuable, and you feel, oh yeah, it is valuable, and you do it once and you get a lot of value from it. But in the times when you're stressed and overwhelmed and you have a little thought, oh, meditation would be handy right now, am I going to do it? No chance. Why? Well, it's hard to prioritize a connection to the heart when someone is in a dysregulated state, because the head's in control, and it's very difficult to prioritize fulfillment. Like Joe Dispenza says, being in survival is not a place to change. It's not a place to change. It's not a place for joy and bliss and wholeness and divine love. That's not the place. When we're in survival, what we're trying to do is stay alive. That's the primary motive. And so if you're going about your life and you're finding sacredness difficult, or to take a breath, be present with your food, that's because you're in a dysregulated state. So there's catch-22 here, and there's an invitation that I'm putting forward for you to embrace sacredness as often and proactively as you can, so that you are in more of a regulated state. More begets more, meaning the more that you put time into sacredness, the more regulated you are, and the more easy it is to prioritize sacredness, which keeps you regulated and allows you to be present and fulfilled. And so, wow, I'm so grateful for that realization, that moment of, whenever I'm doing something sacred, that's why I soak it up and love it and lap it up so much. If I go to an event that's like a cacao ceremony, that is a sacred space. What's the difference between there and going to, I don't know, the local cafe and getting a coffee while I'm rushing to work? They're both drinking drinks that ultimately come from the earth. What's the difference between Starbucks and the Conscious Community Center down the road? One is there is a lot more, like one's sacred, one's not. One has reverence, it's special, and it's given a lot of intention, right? And so that experience of drinking the cacao in ceremony is infused with presence. And therefore, we are instantly, the second we make something sacred, we have an instant connection to our heart. And we're instantly experiencing fulfillment. And if you are yet to listen to my Heart's Prayer podcast episode, which is actually called Staying Empowered, the 4 heart truths in brackets, So that episode, I go through the Heart's Prayer practice, which I do every single day, 9 times a day, as a way to remind myself of the truths of my heart, the truths of the universe that keep me in fulfillment And the fourth heart's truth is fulfillment's here and now. That's the truth. Fulfillment is here and now. In every moment, we have equal potential for fulfillment. So I'm here right now talking about sacredness on a podcast. Now, my mind has the tendency to always want to skip to the next thing. That's what the head does. That's what fear consciousness does. It's living in the future because it's trying to avoid potential danger, and it's living in the past because it's trying to take stock of all the things that were good for survival and bad for survival and go towards the good ones, away from the bad ones. So it's always looking backwards to try to keep us safe. It's not able just to lap up the presence. Again, survival brain's not a place to change. It's not a place to thrive. It's a place to survive. And I'm on this podcast right now. If I'm in my head's telling me the story. Oh, well, you got to get this done so you can go and enjoy this. And I get stuck in that cycle of, I'm at work. I just can't wait to get to yoga class. I'm in the yoga class. It's hard. Doing a vinyasa flow. It's hard. And then so I'm like, man, I just can't wait for this to be finished so I can get into that shavasana at the end and just not have to do this. And then I'm laying down in the shavasana. I'm starting to get restless. And all I want to do is get back to work. When is this going to finish? Then I'm at work and all I want to do is get back to the vinyasa flow, get to yoga. All I want to do is get to shavasana. And then all I want to do is get back to work. There is the opportunity to try to escape every moment, which is the phenomena of the head playing past and future all the time. Or I can soak in the fulfillment that's here right now and live in that wholeness, that presence. And that's what sacredness gives us access to, as often as we choose to make it part of our life. Some people do everything with sacredness. Some people are just completely triggered by sacredness, like I used to be, because it's a threat. It's a threat. If you choose to be sacred, if you choose to see what you're doing as special and or meaningful, and you choose to hold it with reverence and respect and gratitude, and you choose to bring intention and presence to it, boom, you've just made something sacred. And if you do that, guess which part of your consciousness takes a back seat? Your head, fear consciousness, or the ego takes a back seat. It doesn't want to do that. And so a lot of people are just threatened by sacredness because they don't see life through the intention of fulfillment. Their goal is success and outcomes. So someone that's like a senior executive that walks in on one of their staff members with an incense stick lit, praying or doing oracle cards, and that person is not as productive in big business output as what they are, that executive might laugh at the person and go, oh, this person's weird. They haven't even hit their KPIs and they're praying to their gods to try to hit their KPIs. That's not what they're praying to their gods for. They love themselves enough to welcome in presence and fulfillment. You maybe don't love yourself enough to give yourself that presence and fulfillment because you're living under the illusion that the more KPIs you hit in the future at some point, then you're going to be able to receive the love that you want. Whereas this person sitting in front of you, experiencing everything that you want deep in your heart right now for no good reason other than the fact that they love themselves. So the degree to which we let sacredness into our life, it's a symptom of how much wholeness we're embodying. And like I said before, more begets more, meaning the more that we love ourselves, the more that we naturally bring reverence to other people because we love ourselves. So we bring gratitude and respect to other people because we love ourselves. We have gratitude and respect for ourselves. The more that we bring specialness or meaning to life because we see life as special and meaningful. And the more that we live with intention and presence because we're living in our heart. And so when we are connected to our heart, the more connected to our heart that we are, the easier it is to bring sacredness to things. And the more that we bring sacredness to things, the easier it is to be in our heart. And so there is an opportunity to infuse so many areas, if not every area of your life, with sacredness, and to embody sacredness. And I'm going to give you some examples. Things that I used to think are weird: oracle cards. If I pull out an oracle card, which is just a big deck of cards, I believe that the oracle cards are connected to spirit and that everything happens for a reason and there's meaning and there's a special message there. I have respect and reverence and gratitude for the universe. I don't think it's an accident. And choosing to live that way allows me to bring more intention to what I do. So instead of being like, just got to get that podcast done, get it done, tick it off, get it done, I might go, what's an oracle card? And I actually pulled a really cool oracle card earlier. Bridget, who I believe is a Scottish divine master, who is personified in the Pixar movie Brave, the young girl that's got long red hair. So Bridget, that ascended master. And it was, let your passions lead you to your purpose. So sure, I could have just ticked off the podcast. Yep, cool, did it. Got it done. Ticking, hitting results in my life. What for? Why am I hitting results in my life? What's the purpose of it? Ultimately, I'm living under the illusion that the future from ticking all these tasks is going to take me to a place that's going to be better than now. It ain't. It ain't going to be better. There's equal capacity for fulfillment now. And fulfillment just means being in the heart, which is being present. And if I bring intention and reverence and see things as meaningful and special, boom, instant access to that. And so pulling that card informed what podcast I chose to do, what podcasts I chose to do. And I'm getting to do them with much more of an open heart and enjoying doing this and realizing that right now, even though my mind doesn't believe this, my head doesn't believe this because it doesn't feel safe to, but life's never going to be better than this. I'm on my podcast doing what I love right now. It's not going to get better than this. There was one point in my life where having a podcast was the dream. And at that point, I was perceiving that my life would be better when I did the podcast. But then it'd be so easy for me to be on the podcast and feeling like the next thing's going to be better than being on the podcast. Oh, I'll get off the podcast and have some lunch. It's going to be so good. When I'm having lunch, I'm going to be trying to do something else if I'm playing that game. So, oracle cards bring meaning, bring intention. Looking at things as signs and symbols. You could say, well, that's just stupid. That's just pointless. And the reason someone would try to justify that is because they think it's weird, because they feel unsafe around it. They feel threatened by it. They don't understand it. And that person doesn't need to be put down. That person needs compassion. Previous me needed a lot of compassion, even though I felt superior and go away. Similar to that scene in the movie with Robin Williams and Matt Damon, when Matt Damon was the young, super smart prodigy, but he had a lot of trauma, and Robin Williams just keeps repeating to this guy that's so smart, so sarcastic, so witty, putting Robin Williams down, the professor, this young buck that's actually terrified underneath, but's putting him down. And Robin Williams said, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. And he's like, shut up, man. What are you talking about? It wasn't your fault, brother. It wasn't your fault. Shut the piss off, mate. Stop saying that. He starts pushing him. It wasn't your fault. And then boom, he cracks. He starts bawling his eyes out, because that whole time under that mask, that facade, that know-it-all energy of putting down and feeling superior than all that woo-woo, sensitive, spiritual stuff was just fear. Deep fear. Fear of the pain, fear of the feelings, fear of the fragility and being treated like the trauma experience was when that person was younger. So if someone's going through life and they can't give themselves permission to see the beauty in sacredness, it's because they're at a point where they're holding a lot of pain they're yet to let go of. Sacredness really is one of the ultimate forms of self-love. I'm going to create meaning from this. I'm going to create meaning in my life. I'm not just going to eat the food. I'm going to say a prayer before I eat the food. I'm going to do what I do, which is a yum. Yum. And I'm going to channel love into the food. Why? Because when I do that and I bring reverence and specialness and intention and meaning to the meal, I'm instantly brought back into my heart. I'm instantly more present. I'm instantly more fulfilled. It's not because I'm some woo-woo person that thinks I'm better than people that don't do it. It's just a beautiful opportunity. And because I love myself and want to experience more beauty, it makes complete sense to do that. Yeah. What else can we do? We could just go to sleep, or we could say, what are we grateful for in the day? We could get to nighttime and just go, I want to have a tea. Or we could have a tea, light a candle at the same time. All of a sudden, there's a little bit more intention. There's a little bit more reverence. You could drink the tea, or it could be a tea ceremony. Right? What's the difference? It's just tea. Well, it can be more than just tea when there is meaning, intention, reverence, sacredness. It's made special. Right? That's the difference between a life that is matter of fact and physical, and a life that the same physical reality exists, but it's just imbued with spirituality, with meaning, with depth. And that is an instant connection to the heart. So if I am catching up with friends, sometimes I'll catch up with a certain group of people, and the things that they're asking are lacking sacredness. The whole encounter is lacking specialness. It's not being treated as if it's special. It's lacking intention. They're just reactive and being pinballed through their busy life into this social situation and not even present with it. They're just regurgitating the should sentences, like the question, how are you? The response, good, how are you? And they're lacking reverence, respect for themselves, respect for the other person, gratitude for themselves, gratitude for the other person. And there isn't that sense of this is meaningful. And that's okay. Doesn't mean they're a bad person, but will they be experiencing as much fulfillment? No, they won't be, because they're probably not in the heart consciousness that's present. They're in the head consciousness that experiences pressure. And when someone's feeling that, whether they're aware of it or not, someone's in a social situation, they're experiencing pressure, then their personality patterns come out. Now they're trying to tell the funniest story and get the most laughs. So they're not actually there sensing into what they want to communicate and really listening to other people. They're trying to get the funny thing in, or they're trying to ask as many questions as possible when their heart's sick of pleasing and listening. They don't even want to listen to the other person. They're just trying to make the other person like them. So there's an inauthenticity there, and there's not that presence, and they're missing out on the fulfillment, and so is the other person probably. So that whole social situation, with a little bit of reverence and intention and meaning, could be made into a more fulfilling experience that has more presence, that has more fulfillment. I could just hold my friend's hands and say, hey, so nice to see you, brother. How would you feel about closing our eyes down, taking a breath, and setting some intentions for our catch-up? Well, my intention is actually to get some support on some things that I've been feeling recently, and I've just been bottling it up a little bit. So setting that intention for it to come out in the time when it feels right. What else? My intention is to have some laughs and be in my heart. My intention is to have some fun, deep conversations and find out what life's been about for you recently. Yeah, they're my intentions. How about you? That reality is a sacred reality that's filled with so much more depth and fulfillment. Whereas if I go to a catch-up where people are more in their fear consciousness, which doesn't mean they're shaking in the corner, it just means they're lacking presence and authenticity, then the automatic algorithms that they formed when they were younger of who they need to be safe around other people come out. And it's just a big battle of algorithms. Well, I'm going to try to be funny. Or I'm going to try to be the know-it-all. I'm going to try to be the one that's speaking the most. Or I'm just going to stay completely quiet because I feel scared. And there's just this big exchange of noise and energy that's not given and received from the heart, that's not fulfilling or is present. It's more pressure and fear-based and heady. And that's just a shame, because the exact same situation could be made fulfilling just with some sacredness added there. How would everyone feel about closing our eyes down and just tuning into how we feel right now? And that's laughable. Going to a family birthday with 30 relatives from different walks of life. Everyone's just going to laugh at that. That's weird. Do you remember what Ryan did? Got us to close our eyes down. How stupid's that? In other words, it's weird because I feel unsafe around that. I don't understand it. And so it's a threat. I don't feel safe with that. Just noticed some weird background music. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but it was like a jet plane going over, and the vibration from the plane, not even a jet plane, just a normal plane, vibrating my window. That's crazy. Anyway, are you getting the picture of where sacredness, what is sacred? It's intention, reverence, meaning. Reverence, gratitude and respect. Intention, actually having awareness and devoting some presence to it. And making it special is bringing the meaning. Actually say, this is something that's meaningful for me. It's special. Right? So everything can be made sacred. Now, listing off a random group of different sacred things that can be done, going into before a coaching session or before you have a client-facing meeting, just putting your hand on your heart and setting an intention. You could do an eye gaze with someone just to drop in with them before you present with them. It's something that I sometimes do with guests on my podcast before we go live. We set intentions before we go live. I could take a hot drink and hold it and close my eyes down and set some intentions for any prayers I want to put in it. If I am going into a new space, I could just go in there, or I could go into the space and light up some Palo Santo or some sage and cleanse the environment. Excuse me. I could cleanse the environment. Is it doing anything? Well, does it matter? Does it? Does it matter if you believe that it does or not? If the actual reality that you're living in, having done that, means one of more presence and fulfillment, does it matter? Yeah, because that's what it is doing. If you bring intention to it, if you bring reverence to it, and you bring meaning to it, well, yeah, It does make a difference. So putting some nice music in the background, setting intentions before doing something, actually being intentional behind what jewelry you choose to wear, before you go to sleep, saying some gratitude, before you're making love with your partner, setting some intentions and taking some deep breaths together, and actually finding some intention behind what do you even want from the experience. Are you doing it just to get off, or would you like to feel more deeply connected, or do you want some support from your partner to feel more confident in your body, or do you want to set some intentions to work on your authentic expression? Do you want to practice asking for your needs and knowing what your needs are? These are all things that could be accessible, and that would be a lot more intentional than just reactive lovemaking. Why would there just be reactive lovemaking and not sacred lovemaking? What's the difference? Well, one would be because when people get to intimacy, there is a lack of presence because someone's in fear consciousness. And so that is the difference between sacredness and not. One is head-based, life without sacredness, done without presence. And if one's in the head, then it's fear-based and it's pressure-based. Reactive, quick, logical, tick it off, versus reverent, intentional. And there's a lot of presence there and meaning, and it's fulfilling. And that could be attributed to anything, right? So before I have every single meal, I say gratitude and do a yum, which is like but the frequency of the heart, if you Google chakra sounds, the frequency of the heart is yum, Y-A-M. Is the frequency of the third eye. Yeah, so when you say that's the frequency of the third eye. And so you can say yum, open your heart when you're having a meal. It just adds intention. Set intentions for catch-ups. Set intentions for your work weeks. I sit in front of an altar. Now, singing, if I listen to music that's mainstream, sometimes I can get around it and it's engaging and I like the way it sounds and it's cool. And I can choose music that deeply informs how I'm feeling and meets my intentions. And a lot of sacred sounds that are done by artists that are more connected to their hearts have a lot more sacredness imbued into it, which means it opens us up to more fulfillment. So my invitation to you is to ask yourself the question, where can you add more sacredness into your life? Where can you add more sacredness into your life? And what do you already do that is sacred, that you get a lot of value from? You might love cacao ceremonies. You might love ecstatic dance. You could be pumping out some dance moves when you're plastered on drugs at a nightclub or at a festival without intention, but just there. Or you could be in an ecstatic dance or a 5 rhythms dance experience and setting intention and really moving with meaning and reverence and intention and very presently. It's a whole different experience. You could be very controlling with a choreographed dance that is, you're trying to get the best dance and look the best and be cool and succeed and everyone's going to like you. And it could be lacking a lot of presence. There's just a lot of pressure there. Or you could dance sacredly, aka make it special, make it meaningful, make it intentional. Hold the practice with reverence. Yeah, that's that. Another big flavor that is an opportunity for sacredness is if you attribute everything that you're experiencing to the people that you revere the most, the beings that you revere the most, which could be God. If you walk around feeling a sense of reverence and devotion to some kind of ascended master, sacred ally, or deva or God, then there's this extra meaning to life. This was gifted to me by the sun god Ra from ancient Egypt. So I'm looking at everything going, Ra created this. There's reverence. There's more meaning connected to it, right? And there can be this gratitude. It's just another way to create more sacredness. If you add a crystal into a room, you can see there's a fair few behind here. If you add a crystal into a room, what does it do? You could just have a functional room that's minimalist, that's streamlined for results, and this not wasted any money. This is exactly what I need. No distractions, so I can get the results. So one day in the future, I can be worthy of love, and maybe I'll give myself some presents. Or you could just take a room that's a little bit more bland. You can spend a bit of money on some things that really open you to love, open you to presence, make things more special, make things more meaningful. Just the space has now got more meaning imbued into it. And I'm sure you felt the feeling of going into a really beautiful space that's decorated with so much intention and meaning, and just feeling the sense of awe, the sense of involuntarily being shot into presence. It's like, wow. I'm in this state of wonder now, walking around and just feeling so nice in this space, feeling so fulfilled in this space. Why? Because it's more sacred. It's more sacred. So where could you bring more sacredness to your life? And what do you already do that has a lot of sacredness in it? And the last question is, why do you resist sacredness? Why do you resist sacredness? And the answer is because it is confronting for the head. Fear consciousness doesn't want to let loose and open the heart. It wants to control, wants to push away the connection back to the heart, to presence. Because when we do that, we transcend our fear consciousness. It doesn't want to be transcended. It wants to stay in control, right? So the last thing that I'll say on this topic, and I think I might have said that 20 minutes ago, but that's okay. The last thing I'm going to say on this topic is that meditation is a streamlined, potent, powerful way to proactively live in the heart more, because you're connecting with oneness. You're connecting with the divine directly in that meditation experience of transcendence meditation, Vedic meditation. And when you have that experience regularly, you're becoming more aware, more connected to the heart, which means that you're more naturally present, more naturally connected, more naturally grateful. And you're seeing magic more naturally. And so right now, your state of consciousness is at a certain stage. And if you're at a point where there's a lot of stress built up in the system, then you're going to be dysregulated more often than someone that has less stress, which means it's going to be more difficult to access sacredness. So yes, take on board all of the suggestions. Do your best to be more sacred in your lifestyle. It's going to make your life incredibly more fulfilling. And if you can give yourself some compassion and understanding that I am where I am, and the more that I evolve my state of consciousness, the more just organically I'm going to bring sacredness into my life anyway. But that's it for today's episode. If you haven't left a review, please do that. It would mean so much to me. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening. And I'm excited at the idea of you bringing more sacredness into your life. Blessings. Peace out, guys.